right, I'm Chris Avina with American Outdoor News. Today's guest, we have Jon LaCorte from Tract Optics. Jon, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Jon, now you've been in the industry a long time. You started at Nikon designing scopes, binos, optics.
Yeah, I started with Nikon in 1999, and I was the senior product marketing manager up until 2014. So I handled all of the product development for rifle scopes, binocular spotting scopes, and rangefinders, and then also helped with the marketing and advertising.
Now they would strip down the models that you would design for cost and, you know,
Yeah,
things
basically,
that,
Nikon's a very large company, mostly known for cameras. And unfortunately, they started to kind of really kneel down for the anti-hunters and basically got completely out of the rifle scope business. They still sell binoculars and spotting scopes and rangefinders, but
yep.
they really started making decisions that, really kind of allowed me to see the writing on the wall and the direction the company was going. They really just didn't want to have anything to do with hunting or shooting or firearms. So, that allowed my partner, Jon Allen, who also worked for Nikon, we left the company and basically decided to start Tract with the goal of, providing a high-end product that's sold direct. So we don't sell through any of the retail stores. And
Okay.
the reason for that is, the retail stores these days, they're not making the same amount of money they used to make on firearms or on ammunition. So where they're making it up is on accessories. And one of the big cash cows for them is optics. That's an area of the industry where dealers are making more than they ever have been before. So the markup on scopes and binoculars today is greater than it was considerably when I started the company. So by selling direct, what we're eliminating is that middleman. We sell directly to you. We cut out that retail markup. And what that allows, we can build a high quality product without that markup price. So in essence, what the consumer is getting for their money is quite a bit better of a value than they would with our competitors, again, because of that markup. And, that markup can go anywhere between 30 to 50%.
That's a big number.
It is in the scheme of things, obviously, in the economy and in the lifestyles we live, everything is getting more and more expensive. And what was happening, because the dealers would come to Nikon and these other big manufacturers and continually ask for more profit every year, the only way to make the numbers work was to start to reduce the quality, cut features in order to get the numbers to work, because you can't change your retail price. Otherwise, then you're not competitive.
Yeah.
So if the big box stores and the dealers are coming to you every year and saying, hey, I need another 2%, I need another 3%. Well, after a handful of years, you can't absorb that anymore. And it has to come from somewhere. And unfortunately, that's what's happening with a lot of the big brands, is the quality is just not what it used to be because of the pressure that they're receiving from these big box stores in order to, again, make the numbers work.
Now, I remember when you launched and Tract actually hit the marketplace. I mean, that's a huge undertaking. What made you actually step out and start Tract Optics?
Honestly, some faith in God, to be quite frank, because yes, it's a very saturated market, but we had all the right contacts, we knew the suppliers, and it was, while it was a big undertaking, we knew the business. We had been doing it for a very long time, and knew the ins and outs. What was new to us was being a direct to consumer brand and e-commerce, because everything is, all of our products are sold through our website. We do, quite a few consumer shows around the country, but for the most part, you're not going to walk into a big box store or a mom and pop dealer and see our product. We just don't operate that way. We only sell through our website. So there's a lot of challenges with from a consumer standpoint, purchasing online is a challenge because you can't touch and feel it. You can't look through it. And that's something that a lot of consumers need to do in order to make a purchase decision. However, we offer a 30-day guarantee. So if you buy the product and you're not happy with it for any reason, return it and you get a refund. So there's no risk for the consumer to buy online.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you know what? You're still seeing companies pop up in the optic industry. It's not, there's a lot of competition, but there's still room for more. And you're really taking a pretty firm foothold in what you do.
Yeah, it's amazing how many actual optics companies are out there. And like you said, they're popping up all the time. And, each one of them kind of tries to fill their own niche.
Yep.
For us, the niche is the direct-to-consumer model. When we started the company, we were really very hunting focused. Today, a big part of our business is long-range shooting. It's the fastest growing segment in shooting sports right now. And long-range rifle scopes. We just introduced a new scope last week that we're really excited about that's going to provide a tremendous amount of elevation adjustment. So these guys that are shooting rim fires at 200, 300, 400, 500 yards, they're running out of elevation. So this scope is going to accomplish, solving the problem that they had. Just a friend of mine the other day took one of our samples and he got out to 550 yards with the 22 long rifle. So, PRS, ELR competitions are rapidly growing, but they take a lot more room to have a 1,000 or 1,500 yard range, whereas with these rimfire events, you can get a really good course of fire under 500 yards. So it's a little easier. It's a little easier on your wallet with the cost of ammunition. So it's exciting because this one scope hits 3 very separate categories: the long range center fire guy, the long range rimfire guy, and the precision air gunner, because it has a parallax that dials all the way down to 15 yards.
Now, your product line and the amount of SKUs that you're currently carrying has grown tremendously since your inception. It's not just scopes; it's binos. You have rangefinders as well, right?
Yeah, we don't have rangefinders yet, but we have a full line of binoculars. And right now we have 1 spotting scope, but we're going to be adding 3 more in the August or September timeframe. So we definitely are continuing to grow, the product line. Obviously, rangefinders, binocular rangefinder are things that we get asked for constantly, and they're definitely on our radar. Much more challenging a product to develop just because of costs. Patents, there's limited, subcontractors. And one of the things that we've really tried to do was have our products made mostly in Japan, with some of the rimfire and AR models being manufactured in the Philippines. We don't have any of our optics made in China. And that's by design.
Really good to hear.
Yeah, that's by design. However, the drawback of that is it limits us, because when you look at things like dot sights, reflex sights, rangefinders, they're almost all manufactured in China. So, that's the kind of thing that you kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, because you don't want to support, that particular country. But at the same time, if you want to be in that segment of the market, it's kind of unavoidable. So that's a challenge that we're continuing to, try to work on.
Well, with today's political climate, I think you're in a strategically better position than a lot of the other optics companies. Not to get into a political discussion about it, but I think you're positioned pretty well.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of goes back to where Jon and I came from. Nikon was a great company to work for, great people, a great product. But they were very concerned about the political atmosphere as far as hunting and shooting, and instead of just staying kind of neutral, they decided to basically get away from that. And for me personally, that was a very big issue, because hunting is part of my heritage. It's not just a hobby. My grandfather came here from Italy in the early 1900s, and the first thing he did was buy property upstate. So his sons, my father and uncle, could hunt and fish and learn the outdoors. And so, that was passed down to me from my father and uncle, and I'm passing it down to my son. So it's part of what we do as people. It's not just a hobby. So
It's a lifestyle.
to have to make decisions of getting away from your passion was, one of the reasons that allowed us to basically make the move that we did. And thankfully we're in a great place right now.
Well, I mean, the knowledge that you have is you really can't put a price on. For somebody that is actually going to buy a scope for hunting, how do they choose what's right for them? The reticles, the powers, what does it mean, and how do they choose what's right for the game that they're hunting?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I recommend is that you do as much research as you possibly can. There's a lot of great information on the internet. However, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. You have to be very careful.
No, if you read it on the internet, it's got to be right.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of good forums out there, and there's some forums out there that have people that are very opinionated, and unfortunately, opinion is not always fact. And most of the time, there's people that may have an axe to grind against a company for whatever reason. What you need to do is you need to do your research. You need to talk to people, go to the range, talk to people at the range, call up companies like us. We're more than happy to help you to make the right choice. We're available as much as possible. You can call us, you can email us. We have a live chat on our website. You need to get the information to someone that could help you make the right choice. We see it all the time. There's customers that, they deer hunt in the Northeast, in thick timber, and they're looking to buy a 30 power scope. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. Is it 100% wrong? There is no wrong or right. But, if you have that scope set on 30 power and, a deer walks out at 50 yards, you're going to have a very hard time making that shot. So that's not that wouldn't be what we would consider. I know that's a very, wide analogy, but, that's the kind of thing. And making the right choice, magnification, a lot of times, especially in hunting, too much magnification can get you in trouble, because if you have the scope set too high and you have too close a shot, or even a mid-range shot, sometimes the magnification being so high, you have a hard time finding the animal in the scope. Most of the time you have a few seconds, and, if your equipment is not set up right, you could lose that opportunity just because you don't have the right optic.
Well, what exactly does it mean to have a 30 power scope? What is the 30 power?
So when you look at, magnifications, whether it be a binocular or a rifle scope, a binocular usually has two numbers. So 10x 42, 10 by 42. Yep. The first number is the magnification, 10x. When we say 10x or 10 power, that basically is magnifying your human eyesight 10 times. So if you were to look through a 10 power binocular at 100 yards, it would make what you're looking at appear as if it was 10 yards away. So it's magnifying 10 times. The higher that number, the more it's going to magnify. So if you have a 12.5 power binocular, it's going to bring what you're looking at even closer. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, there's something called the optical triangle. And what that means is any time that you increase one or more variables within the optical design, you compromise the other. And the three categories are magnification, field of view, and eye relief. So if you increase magnification, you're bringing what you're seeing closer to you, you're shrinking how much you actually see. So if I take an 8 power binocular, I'm going to have a much wider field of view than a 15 power binocular. But that 15 power binocular, as long as I can hold it steady, might allow me to see detail better at longer ranges. When it comes to a rifle scope, fixed power rifle scope were very popular when I started hunting. Today, they're like non-existent. Pretty much all rifle scopes are what are called a variable. So for example, a 3 to 9 by 40. That means the rifle scope goes from 3 power to 9 power. The second number is your diameter of the objective. So the higher those numbers, obviously, the higher the magnification. An example would be a 4 to 20 power versus a 4 to 12 power. Those are completely different optical designs. One 4 to 12 is a 3-time ratio. A 4 to 20 is a 5-time ratio. So more and more scopes are being developed with larger ratios, which just makes them more flexible because that allows you to use that scope for more and more applications.
Okay. Now, what about mounts? Does it matter how you mount your scope? Is that going to affect how it performs?
Yeah, so I could tell you, being in the business as long as we have, the number one issue with rifle scopes is customers over tightening the scope rings. Just as humans, when you try to tighten something, you try to tighten it as much as you possibly can. That is not what you should be doing with rifle scope mounts. Because what happens is the rings that hold the tube, if you tighten them too much, they're actually compressing on the tube. The tube itself has an erector assembly inside which controls your magnification. It controls the elevation and windage adjustment. It controls your parallax if you have a side parallax. So by compressing the tube, you are really throwing a monkey wrench into the entire optical design, and it will not function properly. It won't hold zero. It won't track. And, we hear it all the time where people say, hey, you know what? My scope is not tracking. Can you check it out? Well, the first question we ask is, what are you torquing the rings to? And by torquing, we mean you should be using a torque wrench. Not just a standard screwdriver. And the reason is because with a regular screwdriver, you don't know how tight you're actually making those ring screws. And again, compressing that tube, you can have the highest quality rings that are made. If you're over tightening them, it's going to compromise the internals of the scope. We recommend 18 inch-pounds. That is a torque value that's going to hold your scope in place. It's not going to compress the tube and allow that scope to function the way it should.
So there's a hell of a lot more to take into consideration than just buying a scope and slapping it on.
It's not mounting a scope is not rocket science, but it's a little more detailed than just tightening some screws. Tightening things evenly is really important because if you're putting unnecessary pressure on one side of the tube, again, the same thing is going to happen. Again, there's tolerances in your rifle receiver, a tolerance in the base, a tolerance in the ring, and a tolerance in the scope itself. So you have 4 different tolerances coming together. And, sometimes, people will say, hey, I can't zero the scope. I don't have enough windage and elevation adjustment. Well, I could tell you most scopes, regardless of the manufacturer, usually have plenty of adjustment to get you zeroed. If you're running out of elevation or windage adjustment, chances are it's not the scope, it's your mounts. Something is causing that scope to be misaligned with your barrel, and it's not allowing the amount of adjustment that the scope has to really be used properly. So, buying a good quality mount, having someone who really knows how to do it, mount it for you. If you're not familiar with it, obviously any gunsmith can do it. But again, if you buy a torque wrench, we've got tons of videos on our website how to mount the scope. Follow directions, take your time, don't be in a rush, and you can certainly do it yourself, but it's got to be done properly or it will affect the performance.
How do you protect your products? If you're, you got it mounted, you're going on a hunt. Sometimes it gets thrown off.
Yeah, we offer, to protect the lenses, we offer either Tenebrex tactical tough covers or Butler Creek covers. The Tenebrex covers are something that are used by a lot of the elite military forces. They thread into the objective so they won't fall off. They snap all the way back so they don't flap during recoil. Very high quality product. We're right in the process of developing the neoprene scope coat type cover,
Uh-huh.
which a lot of hunters like, and even the competition shooters like. So we should have that out, towards the latter part of the summer. The thing about scopes is they are built to be durable. Don't forget they're designed to withstand recoil. So, our scopes are all built to withstand 1000 G of recoil, which is greater than virtually any center fire cartridge generates. And that's including the 50 BMG, the 458 lot, these monstrous cartridges that have a tremendous amount of recoil. Our scopes are actually being used on them today with no problem.
Okay.
Most scopes are built very, very well today. It's not like it was, 30 years ago. So they're built to withstand, the elements. All of the scopes, our scopes are waterproof and fog proof. They're argon gas filled, which argon has a higher resistance to temperature changes versus the nitrogen that's
Okay.
commonly used in a lot of other scopes. It's more expensive, but it adds that extra, layer of protection. Plus the argon molecules themselves are larger than nitrogen molecules. So if you do have some type of an issue and a leak, it'll take a lot longer for the argon to dissipate versus the nitrogen.
Yeah. So have you come out with any new products for this year that people should really take a closer look at?
Yeah, we just last week launched a new toric 34 millimeter rifle scope. This is a rifle scope that's designed for, long range shooting. However, a lot of guys shooting, like I personally use that scope on a rimfire to shoot 50-yard, bench rest competition. The bullseye that we're shooting at is, slightly larger than the diameter of the 22 bullet. So that high magnification really allows you to place the crosshair precisely. It's a 34 millimeter tube, so it's a larger scope, but that's what's required in order to get that elevation range. This scope has 160 MOA of adjustment, which also translates into 47 milliradians. That's just a tremendous amount of adjustment. It's right up there as best in class with that magnification range and that level of adjustment. So, if you're someone that's shooting long range and you're running out of adjustment, this is definitely a scope to take a look at. Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's a little more compact than our other 34 millimeter. Yeah, we've had a bunch of people testing it over the last few months, and the results have been really, really impressive.
Well, I've seen you shoot, and you have to shoot often to be that precise.
I've been very fortunate to, have been around some people that really know what they're doing, and I've been able to learn from them. And the number one thing that I've learned about shooting is it's a perishable skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like riding a bike. You could go 20 years without riding a bike, jump on it, and you're going to ride. Yeah, you could fire the gun after 20 years, but if you're going to continue to be at the top of your game in shooting, you have to shoot often. I honestly try to shoot every weekend. Obviously, that's not always possible, but I love shooting. It doesn't matter whether I'm shooting a bow or shooting a rimfire or shooting a shotgun or shooting center fire. This past weekend, my local club had 100 and 200 yard bench rest center fire match. They had a 50-yard rimfire match. That was on Saturday, and then Sunday, me and my son went out and shot Tract. So, yeah, we love it, and you definitely have to continue to shoot to try to maintain. And I'm always looking to improve. That's why we shoot for score, is because if you're shooting for score and you're keeping track, you can see how you did versus prior your shooting events. So yeah, it's not much more that to say about that. Obviously shooting's also very much a mental game, and I've seen really good shooters, and it's happened to me when your mind is just not there, or you're upset about a shot you made. If you can't block that out, you can't maintain a good mental position, you're just not going to have a good day. And that's happened to me more times than I care to mention. It happened Sunday shooting trap. I missed an easy target and I was frustrated. And you know what? Instead of getting back to what I'm supposed to be doing, I was frustrated. I missed the next target. So,
Yep.
that's the kind of thing. A mental game is extremely important, and repetition, and I know it's tough. Shooting has gotten to be a lot more expensive today than it was just a handful of years ago. But, that's why you look at things like rimfire, that's, less expensive, and, do what you got to do to get yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with archery. Yeah. It's diminishing skill.
Yeah.
We've shot together, and
Yeah.
you see when I don't practice.
Yeah, and obviously archery, it takes a completely different level because there's more of a physical component, holding the bow, drawing the bow. I think I told you, I've been drawing between 71 and 73 pounds since I'm 15 years old. But, I've got 3 herniated discs in my neck. I cannot draw the weight that I used to. And that's a little bit frustrating because I keep having to lower my draw weight, and it's just not what it used to be. But that's a part of getting old, and I'm glad I could still draw the bow and shoot it.
Hey, 50 pounds still gets the job done.
It sure does.
But all right, so what do you have coming up next for us?
We're going to be doing a lot of shows. We did a lot of shows in the beginning part of this year. We're going to be hitting some of the PRS and NRL events. We're going to be down in Texas at the Texas Trophy Hunter Show. All 3 of them. There's one in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. Trying to just get out there and allow people to get their hands on the product. And we're always got stuff on the drawing board. There's always new products that we're trying to develop, and feedback is really important to us. So if you've got an idea you want to throw at us, send us an email or give us a call, chat with us online. The more information we get, the better. We're not a couple of guys that sit in a room and just try to throw something at the wall and see what sticks. From the minute we launched the product line, we've been all ears from our customers, and that's what's really allowed us to go in the direction that we have, because of what people were saying. Hey, you gotta do this, you gotta build this. And in moderation. We can't obviously build everything everyone asks for, because sometimes there's things that might be a great concept, but it's just not something that sells. Like, we get people asking, hey, why don't you build a fixed 4-power scope? Well, we can build a fixed 4-power scope. It's not that we can't do it. It's just that there's not a demand enough for it to really even warrant, us taking the time to do the research, the development, actually tool the product, build the product, and then it sits in inventory. So, and that's us. And people say, all the time, well, you're a new company and whatnot, but take a look, if there's a product you want built and nobody's building it, there might be a reason. And that reason might be because it just doesn't sell. I mean, there's tons of other brands out there that can easily build a fixed power scope, but again, it's just not something that sells. So, that's
don't make money sitting on the shelf,
I mean, that's the hard part, because I grew up using a fixed 4-power scope. So I know how, how great a scope it is, but, if nobody's going to buy them, then it really doesn't make a lot of sense for us to build them.
Exactly. So where can we find your scopes if we want to buy something, or even explore your product line?
Yeah, so the website is tractoptics.com, TRACT optics.com. Honestly, if you Google us, you'll come up with us. We've got a YouTube channel. Our website's got a ton of videos. All the product information is there. So yeah, and obviously we're on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, come do the research, look us up, and yeah, we're there to help.
How'd you come up with the name Tract?
There's really not an actual, like, a plan behind it. It's just a name that we thought sounded good, sounded different, related to, a large expanse of land, the word tract, obviously scope tracking. It's just something we came up with that we thought sounded cool and different. A lot of scope brands are named after a person or, the founding person. And since Jon and I are co-founders, it really didn't make sense to use one of our names. And so, yeah, we just thought it was a cool name that would stick.
Well, it works. It definitely it defines your brand.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on, taking the time to speak to us today. Definitely go to tractoptics.com. Check out the brand. You really will not be disappointed.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thanks again, Jon. I'll speak to you again soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We love our children. We protect them. We guide them. We prepare them for life in the world. With all that we do, from deep in our hearts, we cannot control all things. Life-threatening illnesses and disabilities affect far too many of our children each year. While we cannot change the circumstance, we can make dreams come true. Dreams to provide hope, to provide spiritual healing and strength, to provide moments of happiness and relief in the hardest of times. We can give a glimmer of light and hope in a time of darkness and despair. Join huntofalifetime.org to help make dreams come true, to provide hope for children with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Hunt of a Lifetime is a non-profit organization fulfilling dreams for hunting and fishing trips to youth 21 and under with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Visit huntofalifetime.org to learn how you can make a difference.